If I had known that one weekend trip would change everything between us, I might have packed a different version of myself. One less guarded, maybe braver. But instead, I packed my usual. A couple of oversized hoodies, my sketchbook, and enough sarcasm to last through my brother's relentless teasing. The cabin was smaller than I expected. Tucked deep into the woods near Lake Crescent, it smelled faintly of cedar and the kind of dampness that clings to pine needles. My brother, Evan, had planned the trip with his friends to celebrate finishing their last year of college. I was the tag-along, the kid brother, as they liked to joke, though I wasn't that much younger. Just enough for it to be something. And then there was him, Liam. My brother's best friend since high school. The one with the warm laugh and the bad habit of ruffling my hair whenever he passed me on the way to the fridge. Tall, sun-kissed, the kind of guy who wore flannel like it was made for him and had a permanent scar on his left eyebrow from a biking accident he always exaggerated in retellings. Liam had always been around, backyard barbecues, late-night gaming sessions in our basement, lazy Sundays watching football, but he never really saw me. Not like that. Or at least I didn't think he did. I tried not to think about him too much. But it was hard not to notice the way he stretched when he yawned, or the way he listened so closely when I spoke like my words deserved to take up space. It made something in my chest tighten, something I buried beneath layers of sarcasm and pretending I didn't care. But I cared. God, I cared more than I wanted to. I sat on the creaky wooden porch while the others unpacked, sketching the slant of the trees against the sky, when Liam dropped a duffel next to mine and grinned down at me. "Roomies this weekend, huh?" he said, nudging me with his elbow. "Hope you don't snore." I laughed, but it caught in my throat. "Hope you don't talk in your sleep." He winked. "Only when I dream about you." I rolled my eyes, shoved his arm playfully, and told myself not to read into it. Liam joked like that with everyone, right? Still, when our eyes met and he held the gaze just a beat too long, something flickered. Something that felt like the beginning of a crack in the wall I'd built. And maybe, for once, I didn't want to patch it back up. Liam and I never really had a defined start to our relationship. He was just always there. Like the background hum of a familiar song I didn't realize I knew all the words to until I caught myself humming along. When I was 13 and Evan brought him over for the first time, I remember peeking from behind the stairwell, curious. Liam had braces then, a cracked skateboard under his arm, and a ridiculous amount of energy. I hated how easily he made my brother laugh. And I hated even more how quickly I wanted to be noticed by him. Over the years, we fell into this strange rhythm. Me always on the periphery of their inside jokes and Liam always making sure I wasn't completely left out. He'd toss me a controller during video game nights, invite me into their conversations even if Evan groaned about it. I don't think Liam ever saw me as just the younger brother. Or maybe he did, but not only that. Somewhere along the line it shifted. Quietly. Naturally. Like the way a path changes beneath your feet when you're not looking. By the time I was 17, Liam would text me memes on his own. He'd show up at our house even when Evan wasn't home, claiming he forgot, then end up watching movies with me on the couch. He remembered the little things too, like how I took my coffee or which pens I liked sketching with, or how I hated being called kid. It was subtle, but it meant something. At least to me. In the cabin that first night, we all settled into our rooms. Mine was the smallest, just 2 twin beds and a dusty bookshelf full of old paperbacks. I assumed I'd be alone in it, but of course Evan, in his infinite wisdom, had put Liam in with me. "There was a mix-up," Evan said with a shrug. "Liam was supposed to room with Chris, but now you two are stuck with each other. Don't kill each other." Liam just tossed his duffel onto the far bed and flopped onto it dramatically. "I snore like a bear," he said with a grin, "but I promise I don't bite." I laughed. "Good. Because I have pepper spray." We fell into our usual banter easily, like slipping into a favorite hoodie. Comforting, worn in, but with that electric buzz just under the surface. Later that night, a thunderstorm rolled in. One of those unexpected late summer downpours that came with loud cracks of lightning and heavy sheets of rain. The power flickered once, then went out completely. Evan's voice echoed from the other room. "It's out across the ridge, should be back by morning." Our room was dim, lit only by Liam's phone flashlight balanced awkwardly on the nightstand. "Romantic," I said dryly, gesturing to the flickering shadows on the ceiling. Liam chuckled. "I try to set the mood." I turned away so he wouldn't see me smiling. The real complication came when I realized I had forgotten to bring an extra blanket. The cabin's insulation was terrible, and with the power out, the room quickly turned cold. I sat hunched on my bed, rubbing my arms, trying not to shiver too visibly. Liam noticed. Of course he did. "You good?" he asked, voice softer now. He was lying on his side, propped up on one elbow, eyes scanning me like he could read everything I wasn't saying. Yeah, just colder than I expected. He hesitated, then tossed his blanket toward me. Take this. What about you? I'll be fine. I run hot. He smiled, and I hated how much I felt it in my chest. I hesitated, fingers brushing against his as I took the blanket. That touch, brief but warm, lingered in my skin far longer than it should have. Thanks, I said quietly. No problem, he replied just as quiet. For a moment, neither of us looked away. The silence stretched, soft, not awkward. My stomach fluttered. That was when I realized I wasn't just some kid to him anymore. Or maybe I never had been. By morning, the rain hadn't stopped. In fact, it had only gotten worse, sheets of it slashing through the trees like something out of a movie. Fog clung low to the forest floor, and the muddy gravel road leading back to town was all but flooded. Roads washed out, Evan announced after a quick trip to the edge of the trail with Chris. Ranger says they'll have someone check it tomorrow, but we're stuck for now. Liam looked over at me, one brow raised. Looks like we're roommates a little longer, huh? I smiled, though something fluttered in my chest that felt suspiciously like panic. The rest of the group busied themselves with card games, snacks, and group selfies, but I found myself retreating. I curled up in the corner of the couch, sketchbook open, pretending to draw. Really, I was trying not to overthink the fact that I'd be sleeping next to Liam again tonight, in the same narrow room, with only a few feet of air and one dim flashlight between us. I was failing. That evening, the temperature dropped sharply. Without power and with the storm still raging outside, it was the kind of cold that settled in your bones. Liam came into our room after everyone else had gone to bed, rubbing his hands together for warmth. His flannel shirt clung damply to his chest, and his hair was mussed from the hood of his rain jacket. Evan's hogging the fireplace, he said, sitting heavily on the edge of his bed. Tried to convince him to share. He offered me a couch cushion. I laughed softly. That's generous of him. Liam turned to look at me, eyes narrowing with mischief. Hey, remember that whole, I run hot thing I said yesterday? I raised a brow. You're rescinding the offer? No, I'm expanding it. I mean, if you're cold, we could just share the blanket. Yours looks like tissue paper. I stared at him. He wasn't joking. And maybe it was the exhaustion or the way the cold crept into every muscle in my body, or the soft earnestness in his voice, but I nodded. Too quickly. Yeah, I said, barely louder than a whisper. Okay. We ended up on my bed. Closer than I thought we'd be. The blanket stretched over both of us, and though we didn't touch at first, I could feel the heat of his body radiating inches away from mine. The space between us crackled with something I couldn't name, something sharp, electric. Liam lay on his back, staring at the ceiling. You're quiet, he said after a moment. I swallowed. I guess I'm just thinking. Dangerous, he teased gently, nudging my foot under the blanket with his. I smiled despite myself. I'm full of danger. He turned his head toward me. Even in the dim light, I could see the softness in his eyes. You've grown up a lot, you know. I keep forgetting you're not that awkward 13-year-old anymore. You still ruffled my hair yesterday. I did. Old habits. He paused. But yeah, you're different now. I notice it more than I want to admit. My heart thudded in my chest, heavy and fast. What did that mean? Say something. Say something. Sometimes I wish you'd noticed earlier, I said before I could stop myself. The words escaped like steam, quiet, uncontrolled. Liam blinked, his brow furrowing. What do you mean? I panicked. Nothing. Just, forget it. You didn't? He sat up slightly, resting his weight on one elbow as he looked down at me. His face was unreadable, but his voice was gentle. Hey, you can tell me. I'm not gonna freak out. That was the problem, wasn't it? I wasn't scared of Liam freaking out. I was scared he wouldn't feel the same. That he'd be kind about it, let me down easy, and still sleep across the room like nothing happened, while I drowned in the silence. But in that moment, lying beside him in a too-small bed, warmed by the press of our bodies under a single blanket, the fear lost its edge. You know, I said softly, sometimes you say things or look at me a certain way, and I start to think I'm not imagining it. He was quiet. I couldn't look at him. I try to convince myself it's just how you are, with everyone, that it's nothing. But it doesn't feel like nothing. I felt the air shift, felt the tension grow taut between us. And then, I felt his hand brush against mine beneath the blanket. Slowly. Deliberately. You're not imagining it, he said. My breath caught. Liam let out a shaky laugh. God, I've been trying to play it cool for so long. I thought maybe you just saw me as Evan's idiot friend. But then you'd smile at me or laugh at something I said, or get that furrow in your brow when you're drawing and I'd think, nope, I'm screwed. I turned to look at him then, finally. His face was flushed, but his eyes held mine steadily. There was so much I wanted to say. So many years of half-thoughts and what-ifs bottled in my chest. But instead I just whispered, me too. And in that quiet space, just the sound of rain and breath and hearts beating faster. He leaned in, forehead resting lightly against mine. We didn't kiss. Not yet. But we didn't need to. Not when everything had already changed. I didn't sleep much that night. We stayed under the same blanket, our bodies inches apart, breathing the same damp air and saying nothing for a long time. After Liam whispered, "You're not imagining it," the room had fallen into a thick, humming silence, and I couldn't stop replaying those words in my head. You like me. Or something close to it. And somehow, that felt bigger than I was ready for. I'd spent so many years managing this quiet ache, tucking it into corners, brushing it off as a crush that would pass. Telling myself I'd imagined the extra seconds his gaze held mine. That the way his laugh warmed my chest was just my brain being cruel. But now it was real. It was here. I could still feel the warmth of his hand brushing mine under the blanket, how deliberate it had been. Not an accident. A choice. And if he'd made a choice, maybe I had to make mine too. We were still lying side by side when the sky started to lighten. Barely a shift in the dark, but enough to see the soft outline of his jaw, the way his lashes rested on his cheeks. His face looked relaxed in sleep, peaceful. Like he had no idea what he'd stirred in me just hours ago. I wanted to touch him. Just the smallest thing, my fingertips on his wrist or brushing a lock of hair from his forehead. Something simple. But even now, I hesitated. Because touching him meant inviting more and more meant change. The kind you couldn't walk back. Liam stirred around 6. He blinked awake slowly, eyes focusing on me, and his mouth curled into the faintest smile. "Mornin'," he mumbled. "Hey." His voice was still rough from sleep. "You okay?" I nodded. "Yeah. Just thinking." He rolled onto his side, propped his head on his hand. "About last night?" I swallowed. "Yeah. About everything." He didn't say anything at first, just watched me. His expression was unreadable again, thoughtful, a little nervous. "I meant what I said," he added softly. "You're not imagining it." "Then what am I imagining?" I asked. "Because I've gone over it in my head so many times, and I never know if I'm making this bigger than it is. If it's just me." He reached out, fingers hesitating in the space between us before settling lightly over mine. "It's not just you." I looked down at our hands. "Then what is it?" He was quiet, and for a second I thought maybe I'd pushed too hard. But then he let out a breath, shaky and unguarded. "I don't know how to explain it," he admitted. "You're Evan's brother. You. And I guess, somewhere along the way I started noticing how you see the world. How you talk about things. The way you get quiet when you're thinking or how you laugh with your whole face." I felt my face flush, heart thudding. Liam gave a soft laugh. "And then I started catching myself making excuses to come over even when Evan wasn't home. I started looking forward to your texts more than anyone else's. And every time you smiled at me like I wasn't just some guy who'd been around your house for years, I'd lose my footing a little." His voice wavered. It scared the hell out of me. I turned to face him fully. "Why?" "Because if I was wrong, if you didn't feel the same," he trailed off, his jaw tightening. "I didn't want to mess things up. Or make you uncomfortable. Or screw up what we already had." I swallowed hard. "Me too." Liam gave a small smile. "You always copy my answers." I laughed, nervously, quietly. "No, I've been trying so hard not to feel anything. Telling myself it wasn't real. That you'd never see me that way. And every time you looked at me a little too long or sat too close or made some dumb joke just to get me to laugh. I kept hoping it meant something." He nodded slowly, eyes still locked on mine. "It does." There was a pause, an electric kind of stillness. I licked my lips. "So what now?" Liam reached out, brushing his thumb over the back of my hand. It was such a simple gesture, but my breath hitched. "I don't know," he said honestly. "But I don't want to pretend it's not happening." Neither did I. So I reached up, hesitant at first, and touched his cheek, just with my fingertips. He didn't flinch or pull away. He leaned into it. His skin was warm, and his eyes fluttered shut for a second, like he was memorizing it. "I've wanted to do that for so long," I whispered. He opened his eyes again, and I saw it there, clear as day. The same fear. The same wanting. "I've wanted to kiss you for so long," he said. I didn't answer. I just leaned in. The moment before our lips touched felt infinite. His breath brushed against mine. His hand cupped the side of my face, gentle, tentative. And then we kissed, soft, slow, like we were both afraid to press too hard, to wake up and find it wasn't real. But it was real. Every second of it. His lips moved against mine with a kind of reverence, like I was something fragile. And I kissed him back with all the things I hadn't said for years, almost every maybe, every what if. When we finally broke apart, we were both breathless. My heart was racing. Liam smiled, forehead resting against mine. So, that just happened. Yeah, I whispered, still stunned. You okay? I nodded. More than okay. He shifted, lying back beside me, still close enough for his shoulder to brush mine. Does this mean I have to tell Evan? I groaned. Let's not talk about my brother right now. He laughed. Fair. For a while we just lay there, watching the sky turn from gray to blue through the window. The storm had passed. And maybe it was just in my head, but the air felt different now, lighter, easier. Like something unspoken had finally clicked into place. I turned to look at him again, voice barely above a whisper. Are we doing this? He didn't answer right away. Instead, he reached for my hand and laced our fingers together. Yeah, he said. I think we are. And somehow, despite all the fear and uncertainty, that simple sentence settled everything inside me. We were doing this. Whatever this was, it finally had a name. It was surreal waking up next to Liam and not pretending anymore. The quiet between us had changed, not empty or cautious like it used to be, but full. Full of everything we'd finally let ourselves say, full of everything we didn't have to hide now. I rolled onto my back, our hands still linked. My thumb brushed over his knuckles absent-mindedly, and he hummed at the contact, eyes still closed. You're not a dream, right? I asked softly. His lips twitched. That's exactly what a dream, Liam would say. I laughed, turning my head to face him. Seriously? This feels, I don't know, too good to be real. He cracked one eye open. Well, I snore when I'm exhausted and get irrationally moody when I'm hungry, so don't romanticize me too fast. I already have, I said, then immediately blushed. Liam's smile softened. Me too. He tugged our joined hands up to his chest. So, what now? I mean, I don't want to overthink it, but... I know, I said. I've been asking myself the same thing. He hesitated. Do you want to, be something? Or was last night just... No, I interrupted. It wasn't just anything. I want this. I want you. The silence that followed wasn't heavy this time, it was soaked in quiet relief. Liam let out a breath. Good. Because I really, really like you, and I don't want to go back to pretending you're just Evan's little brother. I groaned. Ugh, we are going to have to talk about Evan at some point, aren't we? Eventually. He grinned. But not now. Right now, I want to bask in this post-confession bliss while I still have all my limbs intact. Smart, I said, nudging his shoulder with mine. He shifted closer until our legs brushed beneath the blanket. Do you think it's going to be weird, telling people? Like your friends or your family? I took a second to answer honestly. Maybe at first. But it'll be worth it. I've spent so long keeping my feelings boxed up. I don't want to do that anymore. He nodded. We'll go slow if you want. Figure it out together. There was something comforting in how he said that, together. Like this wasn't just a moment. It was a beginning. I smiled. Are we dating now? Liam grinned. I mean, I did kiss you under a thunderstorm in a cabin while pouring my heart out. Feels a little more than casual. Wow, I said. You really skipped right to the cinematic part. I have a flair for drama. He winked. It's the theater kid in me. Oh no, I groaned. Am I dating a theater kid? Full disclosure, I once played the Scarecrow in The Wizard of Oz and cried when my hat fell off mid-performance. I grinned. God help me. He rolled onto his back, sighing contentedly. This is nice, you know? Just lying here with you. Yeah, I murmured, it is. He turned his head toward me again. You know, I always thought love would feel scarier. I raised an eyebrow. And this doesn't? He smirked. Terrifying. But in a good way. Like standing at the edge of a cliff with a parachute. I think that's still considered a terrifying way. He chuckled. Fine. But the view's great. There was a pause, the kind that wrapped around you like a blanket. I scooted closer until our arms touched, resting my head lightly against his shoulder. He leaned into it without hesitation. This weekend's almost over, I said quietly. Yeah. But I don't want this to just be a weekend thing. He turned toward me, expression warm and steady. It won't be. I'm not going anywhere. I looked up at him, my chest aching in the best possible way. Promise. I promise. We lay there, tangled in quiet closeness, our fingers still linked, our breath sinking with the rise and fall of the morning. And for once, I wasn't afraid of what came next, because I had him. And that made everything feel possible. 3 days after the cabin, Liam texted me a photo. It was the hoodie I'd worn the first night, my navy blue one with the faded zipper and sleeves that always stretched too long. I'd left it behind in the rush of packing, too distracted by everything that had happened. His message just said, "Rescuing what you left behind. Smells like you. Dangerous." Followed by a smirking emoji and a heart. I stared at it for longer than I cared to admit, grinning like an idiot, then immediately replied, "Keep it. Consider it my first act of devotion." We hadn't seen each other since the trip, not in person. Life had picked up like it always did, classes, work, errands. But everything felt different now. There was this hum underneath everything, a sense of something steady and alive and quietly mine. Hearing from him had become the best part of my day. Random memes. Voice notes full of tired yawns. The occasional picture of his coffee cup with the wrong name spelled on it, Lem, once. Yem, another time. Still, I felt a nervous weight in my chest when I finally saw his name light up on my phone with a new message. "I'm outside." I ran to the front door faster than I meant to. When I pulled it open, he was standing there, hoodie slung over one shoulder, backpack in hand, and a sheepish, almost shy smile playing at his lips. I just blinked at him. "You're here." "I am," he said. "And I brought snacks. And a movie. And," he paused, holding up the hoodie, "your sacred relic." I laughed, pulling him into a hug before he could say anything else. His arms wrapped around me like they belonged there, like they remembered how. "I've missed you," I mumbled against his shoulder. "I missed you more," he murmured back, his breath warm near my ear. "Been counting the hours like a lovesick teenager." We settled into the living room, limbs tangled on the couch like it was the most natural thing in the world. We didn't even pretend to focus on the movie. Somewhere between the second bag of popcorn and a shared blanket, he looked at me with this soft, unreadable expression. "You know what I've been thinking about?" he asked. I turned to him, the light from the TV flickering over his face. "What?" "That night. In the cabin. Us lying there." I kept replaying everything I wanted to say before I chickened out. My heart skipped. "Yeah." He nodded. "I wanted to tell you that even before that weekend, you were already in my head. Like, every time I visited Evan, I was secretly hoping you'd be there. I'd ask about you casually, act like it was nothing. But it wasn't. Not to me." I felt my chest tighten. "Why didn't you ever say anything?" "Because it was easier to pretend," he said simply. "Easier to stay your friend than risk not being anything at all." I reached over, lacing my fingers through his. "But now we are something," I said. He smiled, squeezing my hand. "We are." We sat like that, watching shadows play on the walls, our fingers tangled like vines that had been growing in secret for years. And then quietly he reached into his bag and pulled out a small sketch pad. "I drew something," he said, sheepish again. "It's dumb." He flipped it open and showed me a quick charcoal sketch. 2 figures on a narrow bunk curled toward each other. A blanket half draped. A tangle of legs. The lantern light from the cabin window soft behind them. My throat tightened. "That's us." "I didn't want to forget it," he said. I traced the edge of the drawing. "You won't." "I won't." He looked at me with such certainty then, like we were already building something solid from the mess of what-ifs. "So what now?" I asked. He leaned in, bumping his forehead to mine. "Now we live. And we figure it out. One hoodie, one sketch, one late-night movie at a time." I laughed softly. "That sounds like a pretty good plan." And as he kissed me, slow and certain and full of everything we hadn't dared to want before, I knew it was more than a plan. It was a promise. The beginning of something real. Something ours.